Okay, so let's get started. Hello and welcome everyone. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for Moving Forward While Looking Back, an Emancipation Celebration panel discussion. I think we have a fantastic group of panelists here that are going to share their memories and experiences of past emancipation celebrations that were hosted throughout Essex County decades ago. So I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. But before I introduce them all, I just want to let everyone know that we're going to have a giveaway during the panel discussion. I've got 2 tickets to our sold out Emancipation event that's happening this Saturday. I'm going to ask a question, and the first person to answer the question in the chat section, so make sure you type in your answer. The first person to answer it in the chat section, they're going to receive 2 tickets to our Emancipation event that's happening here at the museum on Saturday. So just make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, I see a lot of you have already done this, so I really appreciate that. If you don't mind, before we have the panel discussion, if you could mute your mic so that there isn't any background noise or distractions for the panelists, that would be really appreciated. So thank you. Let's move on to talking about the amazing panelists. As I said, there's a great group of people that we have here today, starting with Lois Larkin. She was born in Niagara Falls, New York, and at the age of 7, she moved to Windsor with her family. Lois earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Windsor, majoring in fine art history, and following graduation, she became an elementary school teacher and librarian. Lois is now retired, and she's also a member of the Artists of Color. She is also a board director for the Essex County Black Historical Research Society. So say hello, Lois. You can wave if you want. You don't have to unmute yourself. Next is Nancy Allen. She is a retired educator and co-founder of the North Star Cultural Community Center and organizer of the McDougall Street Reunion. She's also a clerk at Windsor's British Methodist Episcopal Church and a member of the Essex County Black Historical Research Society. So thank you, Nancy. We also have, I don't know if oh, there we go. I see you, Clayton. You can put your camera on if you want. Let's see. So if you can unmute yourself, Clayton, and you can put your video on if you want. So Clayton is a past president of the Windsor Black Coalition. He's also a past president of the Windsor Urban Alliance on Race Relations and West. He's also a past board member of the Multicultural Council and the North American Black Historical Museum, in addition to being vice president of the Downtown Community Center Organization and Local Youth Network and Community Services. So Clayton, thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you want to turn on your camera, you can go ahead and do that. Next is Wilbur Mulder. He is the president of First Elements Incorporated in Windsor, which provides professional consulting services in environment and safety fields. He also has a bachelor's degree in public administration from Central Michigan University and an associate's degree in chemical engineering technology from St. Clair College, in addition to being an advisory board member with Amherstburg Community Church. We have a duo in our group as well, Joan and Cecil Smith. They were born and raised in Windsor and married for 65 years. They have been active members of the community for 90 plus years. Joan worked at Thibodeau Express for 21 years, and Cecil worked for the Board of Education custodial department for 35 years. So that's very impressive. He enjoyed working in the schools with teachers and students, and to this day, he still encounters past students out of the community that he likes to stop and catch up with. Joan and Cecil also owned and managed a gift store called Village Potpourri on Ottawa Street in Windsor for 10 years. And Joan really enjoyed interacting with the customers that came into their store. So thank you for that. Next is Janice Harris. She is a descendant of freedom seekers, including the Taylor family, who escaped enslavement via the Underground Railroad coming to Canada. She also is a niece of Betty Simpson, who is the co-founder of the museum. So thank you for joining us, Janice. We also have Lana Talbot. Lana was born and raised in Windsor, Ontario, and her creative talents include drawing, painting, designing, and sewing, in addition to flower arranging and creating heritage dolls. She's also the vice president of the Artists of Color and volunteers her time at the Sandwich First Baptist Church and also the Amherstburg Mission. Thank you, Lana. And then lastly, we have Elise Harding Davis. She had to pre-record her answers. So we have my assistant here, Anand, who is dressed very sharply in the blue suit. He's going to be representing Elise and playing her responses throughout the panel discussion. I should let you know, when I was interviewing Elise, the sound quality was not the greatest. So you might have to adjust your sound, turn up your volume to hear her answers. I've tried to edit it and adjust the sound to as high as possible, but you might want to adjust your volume if while you're listening to her responses. Now, Elise, she is an author, an educator, African Canadian heritage consultant, and former curator, administrator of the North American Black Historical Museum and Cultural Center. She's also the recipient of the Golden and Diamond Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee medals for her work. So thank you, Elise. I've already thanked Anand, but I do also want to thank two other people. Lori from the River Bookshop, who has been very helpful with the Zoom aspect of things, and also to Carrie Lynn, who is offering tech support to Joan and Cecil throughout our panel discussion. So Carrie Lynn is one of our board directors here, so I'm very much appreciative of you helping with that side of things. So thank you to Carrie Lynn as well. So today's panel discussion, as I mentioned, will be recorded, and we're going to upload it to our website and YouTube page if you did want to watch it again after the panel discussion is over. So I think I've talked enough, so I'm going to start with the questions now. So let's go ahead and start with the first question. So Emancipation was celebrated throughout Essex County in locations such as Jackson Park, here at the museum, also Caldwell's Grove and Amherstburg. I want to know where all of you celebrated Emancipation and what decades did you attend? So who wants to go first?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, maybe I'll have Anand, if you want to play Elise's answer first, and then everybody can just think about it while we have
it was.
Okay, so a little bit of technical difficulty on the sound there, but Elise was talking about how she attended here in Amherstburg at the museum, obviously as the curator here, but also in Windsor as well. So she's attended since she was a small child, so it was many decades that she attended. So, okay,
I see that you say Essex County, but it was also in Welland County. The first Emancipation I remember attending was with my grandmother at Crystal Beach, just out of Niagara Falls. There was a major picnic, people had family reunions, and we met there. And we went, it was like a train, but it was open, and it had, the smoke came back and the sparks kind of got on you while you were on your way there. But we had a great time.
Oh, I remember attending in Windsor at Jackson Park and also at the Amherstburg Museum. That was quite a great time. It was quite a while ago, many years ago, but it was fun. We had to save up in order to be there. To buy our clothes for the Emancipation. That was the best time. My father was a farmer, and he would pay us money for working, so we would order out of Eaton's and Simpson's, so we would have new clothes for the Emancipation. So that was a good time.
Wow.
I'm kind of younger from the group, but I remember, say, from the early 60s, we would be at the Jackson Park till about 1977. And then
Mhm.
I can remember picking it up over at Micmac Park from the late 70s until 1982. But yeah, it was good times. And I know that one of the things they're going to ask about favorite memories, and I'll just save that. But it was just the latter part of the 60s and the 70s that I was really involved in the 80s before it kind of disbanded.
Well,
Mm.
actually, Mulber, if you want to expand on that, we can, unless anybody else wanted to share where they attended, we can talk about the next question about your favorite memories of Emancipation.
Well, I attended, before he goes into his favorite memories, I have some too, but I attended in the 50s and the 60s and possibly into the 70s. It was a big party as far as I was good. It was a picnic.
Yeah.
Barbecue, you could smell it for miles, and chicken, and what I really liked was the Ferris wheel ride. But above all that, I just celebrated 2021 Emancipation at Sandwich First Baptist Church, because August 1st, 1851 is our headstone. And it says, upon this rock, I will build my church, and
I
gates
heard.
shall not prevail against it. So yeah, I think that's a nice span from the 50s to 2021. Yeah, I enjoyed Emancipation, and I always will.
Yeah.
Amazing. Did anyone else want to add to anything to that question? Go ahead, Clayton. Please share.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I too attended Emancipation early in my life, and we used to enjoy an annual visit to Windsor at
Mhm.
Jackson Park, and we had fantastic times. It was like an annual family reunion for us. We were a family of 11, and we would go there and we would meet cousins that we had not seen for sometimes many years, sometimes a few years, etc. But it was always an enjoyable coming together. And there were things I remember that baffled me at the time. But he used to have the grandstand there. And if you happened to be running around playing and you ran behind the grandstand, there was always a group of people back there throwing coins against the wall and see who would get the closest and all of that sort of thing. And they would be doing that, and whatever money you threw against the wall, if you weren't the closest, you lost your money. And there were guys back there doing all kinds of crazy antics like that. They were older than me, so I just basically stood back and observed. And then I would go back out in the front, and of course, you would see the marching bands.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I haven't seen marching bands like that since then. You know, they've dwindled down and dwindled down. Now it's almost impossible to get an American band, a marching band, to come across the border. It's tightened down so much at the border, they can't seem to get their instruments across and all of that sort of thing. But in any event, the parades were phenomenal. And you would stand there at the, what did they call it? The Battle of the Bands.
Yeah.
What an experience. And I mean, they would really put on a performance for the crowd, and they would choose which band won the prize. Super, the entertainment was excellent. And as Janice said, the food would draw you for miles, right? We always had our own food that we brought up with us, but at the same time, everybody would put some money aside to buy some ribs or something like that. And I remember the Hanser family and the Browning family. They used to do a lot of the barbecuing there. They were very good at it. I remember that distinctly. And to get a slab of ribs or half a slab of ribs, feed a whole lot of people. They all enjoyed it. Oh, those were good experiences. And
Yeah.
then as time progressed, there were difficult times, and some of the experiences that I saw there were, an example was when we went to a march to the Windsor Arena over on McDougal Street from Jackson Park, and there was a little kerfuffle there, and things got sort of dismantled, and it didn't go as well as it expected. But in any event, that was the last event that I went to in Windsor. The next event I went to was in Amherstburg at the museum. And it was really, really nice. We enjoyed the event. I bought a couple of artistic pieces that I still have on my wall over there. And the artist was from the US, and they were just rolled up like a scroll. So I brought them home and I got them framed, mounted, etc. And I still have them and enjoy them. Every time I walk past them, I look over at them and I enjoy visioning them and reminding myself when I got them. And it was an experience. My daughter, excuse me, my daughter won the Miss Emancipation celebration in Amherstburg, Ontario. I loved that, and I was so pleased that she was able to do so. We had her in dancing school since she was probably about 4. And she was in there from 4 until she was 18. And then she had won all of her primary things and learned how to deal with dancing to the extent that she could have opened her own studio if she chose to do so. But she didn't. She moved over to the US, and she's still over there in Phoenix, Arizona. Makes it really hard on us. We don't get to see her as often as we'd like. But the Emancipation sort of drew things like that together in my mind. And it always was something to look forward to every year. And I'll always
Fantastic.
remember that. Always remember that.
Thank you, Clayton Talbert. Thank you so much. Did anyone else want to add anything for or are we good to move to I mean, some of you have already shared your favorite memories of Emancipation. Did anyone want to share any of their memories, any additional memories? I think Wilbur does. I think he's excited too.
When I read this, it kind of threw us back down memory lane. And to reiterate some of the things that Janice and Clayton had said, I think that was the feeling amongst everyone. I can remember back in the early 60s, even before the Emancipation celebration started on that Saturday, my mom would be in the kitchen and they'd be making their own barbecue sauce. It wasn't going downtown and getting the craft stuff. I mean, they started out with HP and the ketchup and tomato paste. I found out, I didn't know what rib ends was. I thought that was one word, but I remember I'm going up to the market and coming home. My dad would have a box of ribbons and they were in a little small case. They would do that out the back. You would get the chickens and, wring the necks, pick them and have all that ready.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd get ready, like Janice was saying. You got a new outfit for Emancipation. They call it the 1st of August. And all of us would have our clothes done up and we would get up and get positioned where the parade would come into the Jackson Park. And there'd be all the families there. They mentioned the Taylors. There'd be Walls, Scotts, Harris, Mulder. And you got to know everybody, who everybody was. And you got to know your relatives and how you were related. And it's just a great time. And then as Clayton was saying, the bands, you would have bands from Detroit, Illinois, or Chicago, Ohio, but you had that Hero band, and man, those guys would be rocking it coming down. Hero, Hero Kinsman band, and then it's IGA band. You could hear them, and you could watch the people kind of rock back and forth. And I can remember even some of the names. Leon would be in there, Leon Smith, Butch Nolan, Pootie Smith, Felton Logan. Man, them guys, Joe Crosby. And I mean, they had, my sister Joanne was in there. And it was just a great time. And they could roll with the best of them. And as Clayton has said, these bands from Detroit, they would come in. They had the drill teams, the French Dukes, and different ones from Chicago. We'd go over after parade and watch them. And the smells from just going into the park, the barbecue pit hit you in the face. The smell of cotton candy and caramel, corn and apples. And the great thing that we had, my dad would give us 50 cents. And that was either to buy some cotton candy, some go for a ride. That's all we got was 50 cents. But that was a lot of money when there's, 12, 13 in the family. And you're only making about $1.25 an hour. But there was just good memories. The people, there was just a camaraderie. Everybody knew everybody, seemed like they cared for everybody. And it's just a kinder and gentler time. And then we just jump ahead. I worked at the Chrysler plant back in 1973. That was on the corner of McDougal and Tecumseh. And the smell from that barbecue, lunchtime, man, we'd bust a move to get over there to get some of the barbecue. But it was good times, all and just happy times. And it was a kinder, gentler time when everybody seemed to need somebody. And now even the society changed. Looked like every man for himself. And as I said, God for us all, but it was just a good time. And I'll just kind of cut it off there because I know other people have things they'd like to say.
I think, I'm not sure, Joan and Cecil, I think it looked like you wanted to share something. Did you want to add?
I would like to.
Go ahead.
It goes back, I was born in 1928.
Yes.
And I remember Emancipation roughly from 1935 to 45. And just prior to that, my first radio, I must have been 1937. And the only way that we got this radio, my father he had 2 cents or 3 cents on the, what they call it back then? The clearinghouse. And he hit for around $200. The first thing he did went out and bought us a radio. Well, that was just everything.
It's memories.
That was everything. I mean, you go back in your mind, listen to all the stories. So we really enjoyed that. But another thing I'm thinking about, my father had a concession out at Jackson Park for at least 2 or 3 years, and he sold ribs and barbecue. Mr. Edmonds was his chief cook and bottle washer. I don't know whether he made any money or not, but it was an enjoyable experience from that point of view. And then I remember the parades going up Willette Avenue from downtown out to the park.
Yeah.
And of course, there'd be lots of people out there, tons of people. And I know that Mr. Perry was the inspiration of it, and he did a wonderful job. And there'd be thousands of people from all over the country.
Yes.
We thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. But I just, that's my experience with Emancipation.
What I
Anyone else?
remember is license plates from all over the state. People galore and a really good time. Food was great. That was one of the highlights of the year, along with the Fireman's Field Day.
Yeah. That's right.
Anyone else want to share anything further about that question?
The Milburns lived 2 doors down from us. And Mrs. Geneva Milburn would make pies for Emancipation. You'd go to the house, every place that had a flat surface had pies on it, cherry pies, lemon meringue, name it. 15 cents a slice.
Yeah.
That's what it cost. That was a lot of money. But
Oh my.
they were just amazing. And you talk about the parade. Do you remember the Preston Boys Parade?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
With the slouch hats and the shorts. And then
Amen.
there was the Buxton Parade.
Buxton, yeah.
Thomas Shad was the drum major.
Yeah.
And he led down
Yeah.
Walnut Avenue.
Thank you, Lois. The Preston Scout House Band, those boys had the prettiest legs I ever saw.
I tell you.
And just to finish on that, and Helen, because they lived on Mercer Street next to where the old Mercer Street School was, Uncle Walt would bring them down to the field behind Mercer Street School, and they had to practice the day before the parade. Well, all us young women were down there watching them practice. Phenomenal. Thank you for that. I thought I was the only one that knew that they were good, but they were right on.
Good.
Don't forget the Mavericks and the Mavericks. We walked down, we did a parade. We were in the Emancipation Parade, and to this day I have calluses on the bottom of my feet for doing that little shuffle that Larry Shreve had us doing. One of the other things is a green pail. I so remember a green pail and dry ice and salt when my grandmother would make, my great-grandmother would make ice cream. We had our own peach ice cream. Always remember that. And I also remember my dad getting a 3-headed coin from Mr. Perry, and it had 3 black men on it. It looked like a 50-cent piece, and it was real money. And I'm assuming one was, let me say, Frederick Douglass was one, and I believe the man with the peanuts, what's his name?
George Washington Carver.
Lana, you're not coming through.
No.
Can you hear me? I don't know what happens to me.
That's better.
She's muted again.
Now you're muted.
There you go.
There. Okay, I was just saying about the 3-headed coin, but they had 3 black men on this coin. And when I was talking to Lynn Powell, because Lynn Powell still owns the charter for the Emancipation, she told me that Mr. Perry always gave that to the people that worked for him. Because
You're fading away again, Lana.
Yes.
I'm going to quit talking then, because I don't know what's wrong with my phone, but that's what it does. It fades, it comes in and goes out. I'm done.
So, did anyone want to add anything further, or are we good to move to the next one? Okay, so before we move to the next question, I just want to do the giveaway, the question. The first person to answer this question in the comment section gets 2 tickets to our sold out Emancipation event that's happening this Saturday. So it's a pretty simple question. Can someone tell me the nickname of Emancipation organizer Walter Perry?
Uncle Walt.
Mr. Emancipation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I see Kimberly Simmons is the winner of 2 tickets to our event. So thank you, Kimberly, for answering so quickly. So the answer is Mr. Emancipation. So congratulations.
Probably
Kimberly.
going to have to give those tickets away since I can't get across the border, but we'll see.
Yes, please let us know who will be using those tickets. Great. So you can just send me an email, Kimberly, just letting me know who will be using those tickets in your place if you're not able to attend. So if you could let me know today or tomorrow, that would be great. Okay, so let's move to the next part. So the question was about Walter Perry. So I want, if people could share their memories of Walter Perry. I mean, his nickname was Mr. Emancipation. Is that a fitting nickname for him? If people could just share their memories of him, that would be great. If they'd met him, or even if you hadn't met him, what you'd heard about him.
Well, my name wasn't Mr. Emancipation. We called him Uncle Walt. He was from the Chase family. We lived in North Buxton and we moved to Windsor. And his mother and my grandmother, Myrtle Brooks, were sisters. So he used to come over to the house. We lived at 883 McDougal and visit all the time. And half the time he'd come in, the cigar would be in his mouth. It wouldn't even be lit. But that was his trademark. But Uncle Walt was nobody knew Uncle Walt the way my grandmother did. But he'd come in and he called her Aunt Mert, and he'd always come to see her at least twice a month, maybe sometimes once a week. But he was a very giving man, and he tried to promote the children in the neighborhood. Some, back in the old days, they had the horses that used to come to your house and they take your picture on the horse. Well, this horseman showed up over at Uncle Walt's house on Mercer, and he brought the horse across the street and back over to McDougal, and he went around the neighborhood and gathered up about 5 or 6 children and had their picture taken with the horse. So he was a very compassionate man. He cared about people, but I think his love for emancipation evolved from being a descendant of the Underground Railroad. He knew the meaning of emancipation, and he celebrated it in such a way that well, the name is appropriate. He did a lot, not only for people of African descent, but any color you could name could identify with emancipation. To this day, we run into people all over and they talk about emancipation. But he was just a great guy. And I don't know if there's any other, but his name will always live on as a giving person who, and like you, Wilby, he could have been a comedian because he cracked jokes all the time. And he was special, not because, he's from the Chase family, but just because he was special. That's.
Nancy,
Yes.
I was in Patterson Collegiate School one day. In the hallway was his picture. So he was quite an athletic student, and he won some honors there, through his abilities as a player. And I thought that was quite admirable to see his picture up on the hallway in Patterson Collegiate, Walter Perry.
Mm-hmm. You're correct, Cecil. His picture hung on the wall. He was a very athletic person. That was quite a time because he and his brother Bill, his Uncle Bill, we called him, his brother, he was very athletic as well. And I think it's unique that this school in the middle of the Black neighborhood produced so many well-known sportsmen that people, Kenny Rock, all those people, they were all there. So it's good to know. Thank you for remembering that part.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. That was an excellent point. And thank you so much, Cecil, for your comment as well. Did you have a comment as well, Clayton? I thought I saw your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that I knew of Walter Perry in the sense that he would coordinate people coming from the States with their bands.
Yeah.
He had contacts all through North America and was very good at organizing for the Emancipation Day celebrations. And so much so that he had people coming from Mississippi, Georgia, and all they go southern states and that, right straight through to Michigan. And they would come in droves. And I think that's where he probably picked up the nickname Mr. Emancipation. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. Janice, did you? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Yep.
I did. I didn't really know him. I followed, the Emancipation Day celebration, but I did know his wife more so. She wrote a book, and there were several, Anita Travis, myself, people that worked in this, several Black people that worked in the stores in Windsor. And I was noted in that book. I can't remember the name of it, but
The long road.
Huh?
Right here, the long road.
Yeah, the long
Okay.
road. Wow,
All
you are
right.
prepared, Nancy.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know the name of it. It's been a while since I saw it. My son has it, but I know that I was mentioned in it, and several other people were mentioned that were Black. Okay,
I think that may have been his sister-in-law.
who's
Mhm.
that? Charlotte Bronte?
No,
Perry?
Charlotte Bronte Perry,
Yes. That was his sister?
his sister-in-law, I think.
Okay.
Well, Lois,
Very
Lois
Okay,
is-
well,
I'm sorry. Lois is right. Charlotte Bronte Perry was his sister-in-law. She was married to his brother, Dr. Roy Perry,
Right.
who
oh,
was a
yeah,
dentist in the city.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, you're right. Yeah. It's been a while, that's why.
Okay, so we're gonna try again to play Elise's answer to question number 3. Hopefully the sound quality is a little bit better. If the sound persists to not be good, if anyone is interested in seeing Elise's answers, they can reach out to us and I can send you the file so you can watch it. But hopefully it does work this time. So go ahead, Anand, with question number 3, please. Is your volume on, Anand?
Not getting anything at all here.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
Is everyone hearing her
No, it
response?
starts-
No, okay.
No.
So Anand,
No.
you can go ahead and stop. And what we'll do is, again, if anyone does want to hear Elise's complete interview, please feel free to reach out to us and I can send it to you. I can also try and maybe upload that to YouTube as well so that you get her complete answers. So it's just if the sound
I would
quality is not
appreciate
working,
that.
we might as well just
I would
move forward, I
appreciate a
guess.
copy.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question. So number 4, how were you involved in Emancipation? Did you participate by enjoying the entertainment, food, etc., or were you also part of the planning committee? Did you cook food, help with setup, and were any of your family members involved in that capacity as well?
If I could start,
Go ahead. Wilbur.
after we were gotten a little bit older in the 70s, we used to march in a parade with Bob Chase, who is in his karate school, and we'd walk the line, try to stay on the white line because it was cool. The pavement would be so hot, and he'd have us drilling all the way down to the park, and then afterwards, I kind of got involved, not kind of, but I remember being asked if I would organize the church services because that was a strong component at one time that kind of fell away. So Mr. Ted Powell, he asked if I would help to organize. So I guess from 1977 until it moved out to Micmac Park, we would set up the church services, the choirs, but nowhere near the magnitude with the drawing power that in the original Emancipations in Jackson Park. We'd have a lot of the local involvement, but we didn't get the far outreach that he was able to pull in from his connection. So that was where it was in the latter years.
Mhm.
Thank you, Wilbur. Anyone else want to share their involvement?
In 19,
Oh, you can go ahead first, Lois, and then Nancy, if you want to respond afterwards. I think you had something to say as well.
I was just going to say in 1988, I was on the board. Henry White and Frida Steele were president and vice president. And they gave me the gift of being responsible for emancipation. And prior to that, it had been in a field in Amherstburg. And we brought it back to the museum because people often would celebrate, but then go home. So there was a huge, it was almost like a trailer parked at the back of the museum. We brought that forward and cleaned it out. Howard Obie barbecued, and the Ladies Aid Society of the museum handled much of the serving and the preparation. Jackie Brown, wife of Ricky Brown, had a young person's group that were presenting on the grounds. Patricia Jocks put together a fashion show, and they built a runway at the backyard when we could use the backyard at that time. It was most successful, and I remember we needed help with the signage, and Dennis Smith did the painting of the signs. I can't remember a lot more than that, other than it was the most successful time when everybody came home to the museum.
Yes.
Do you remember that, Janice?
Yeah, I certainly do.
If I've forgotten anybody, please mention them.
Nancy, if you wanted to add your comments as well.
Sure, my involvement, and I think this goes back to the notion of him wanting to help the youth as much as he could. My involvement mostly was working in the Midway. We had to sell tickets, and the money that we made, we were paid by the hour, and it was the Marsh Carnival Company that came every single year. And I would sit in a little wooden booth and sell tickets. But that money, for many of us in the community, especially the teenagers, that's how we got the money to buy our books and whatever we needed to go back to school. I'm thinking grade 9, it was probably 1958 or 59. And that year really was, my mother was so happy because we could get our books and papers and whatever we needed. So a lot of the youth in the neighborhood, that was really their role in helping with emancipation. I guess for me, as far as helping in the planning, the city of Windsor was formed in 1892. And in 1992, Lyle Browning was the president of the museum, and he called a bunch of us together because the city of Windsor allowed and they stress one time. In other words, emancipation could go back to Jackson Park, which they did in 1992. And we had a mini emancipation in Jackson Park. And everybody's, oh, emancipation's coming back. Well, the city of Windsor was so strong, they had somebody out there correcting other people when they said, I'll see you next year. No, you won't, because they won't be back. But Lyle did an effort. I worked with the public relations. I remember Joanne Shreve was the treasurer, and my husband, Jim Allen, and Elise's husband, Garland Davis, were both teachers at St. Clair College. And Lyle called them in to check the electrical workings in the old bandstand. It was so bad, those guys would take a couple of wires and twist them together and run because they weren't sure if it was going to short out. And Leone, the owner of Leone Studio Music in Windsor, I don't know how many of you remember Leone's, but he came over and took over. He brought in all of his sound system. We had the best, I mean, you could have heard us in Detroit, but he brought in all these sound speakers and brought in extra cables. And I never saw two happier men than Jim and Garland when they saw a guy who was also an electrician who knew, but it was just funny. You'd see him plug something in and run. But it was, and I'll just say my son said, oh, this is great. This is nothing compared to what it used to be, but they got to
Right.
experience a mini part of it. We have the
Yeah.
whole part, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's my participation in Emancipation.
That was wonderful.
Amazing. Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else want to add on to that with their, Clayton, go ahead.
You know, I would feel remiss if I didn't mention the professional entertainment that used to be there.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
there were some beautiful, beautiful entertainers that came there and put on performances that would stop the clock.
Mhm.
And I've seen several of them, you know, and the favorite that I remember was the Supremes. They weren't called the Supremes at the time, but they were three women that were still in school over in Michigan. And they came there and they knocked the house down. And later on, they ran into, what's his name, that ran the, oh, geez,
Barry Gordy from
Barry
Motown?
Gordy. Barry Gordy, yeah. And he wouldn't let them perform until they graduated. And but he sort of kept them in his mind's eye until they were old enough and able to make the decision on their own as adults.
Wow.
But they did a fantastic show at Emancipation that year. I remember several celebrities that came there to speak, and they loved the Emancipation. Would always come back if they were called in a heartbeat. So I don't think that that should be neglected, that that took place there. That was a phenomenal incorporation of talent, of people that were, for example, involved in the Underground Railroad, were involved in anti-Black racism at that time, and in its own context at that time. They were there, and they did speak out, and strong police force. We're always filtering through the crowds. I remember that distinctly, but it was not overshadowing all of the comments that everyone here today has made about the beautiful parts of it. And for that, I'm grateful. Yeah.
Well, and Clayton, the thing as well is, if there are not so positive experiences, like we want to tell the whole picture. We don't want to hide anything. So if there are negative things that happened, people are allowed to share those as well. So don't ever feel like you're going to be edited or you're going to be silenced. So if you have comments, please share. And I see Lana is going to respond. I just wanted to add, during my interview with Elise, she did talk about the Supremes, and she talked about Mary Wilson being published in the newspaper saying, you knew you hit it big once you were at Emancipation celebrations and performing there. So I just wanted to make sure that gets added in. Go ahead, Lana.
I hope everybody can hear me, but don't forget.
Can you bring your phone a little bit closer? It's hard to
Can you hear me
hear.
now? Can you hear it?
Yep.
But somebody needs to mute their mic.
If there's anyone who is a guest, if you don't mind muting yourselves, or if you're even a panelist with background noise, just mute yourself so we can hear Lana.
Safety and security and the ability to get out right now.
Oh, let's see. There we go. Go ahead, Lana.
I just want to point out, don't forget the Galahads who beat the Supremes.
Yes, indeed.
And that was Charles Jones.
Oh, yes.
Melvin Davis and Buck Morgan. They put them down, the Supremes. And it's really sad that our Canadian boys didn't make the grade because they could sing. They were excellent singers. Yep, they beat the Supremes, but they weren't the Supremes. They weren't known as Supremes then. They were just three women from the Brewster Projects in Detroit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those young men could sing. And that was, you remember that, Clayton?
Okay, bye.
Okay, I'm done.
Go ahead, Wilbur.
I keep seeing
What I was
Patricia
going to say,
Neely.
in 1971, I remember it like yesterday. It was a day, it was August the 1st, the night before we got in the head-on collision, and I broke my leg that night. And I remember my brother-in-law Leon carrying me into from McDougal Street in Tecumseh into the Emancipation. And who should I run into but Dr. Ralph Abernathy? And he was a replacement, stood in for Dr. Martin Luther King. And we talked, and I mean, that guy was just down to earth. But one of the great things that I can remember about the Emancipation was that how we were able, or Mr. Perry was able to bring to light the plight that they were in and show the progression that we had here in Canada over what was, prevalent still there in the United States. So he was a great visionary, although I never met him. But wow, as Clayton has said, some of the people that passed through, it was just phenomenal to see, and how a little guy from Windsor could organize that. Great skills, great visionary, as far as I'm concerned, as a gentleman goes.
And if anyone else, I mean, this leads into another question we have is the entertainment and the people that you remember performing, if you have other memories of that as well. I know some things have been shared already, but we can go into that topic as well too. And Joan and Cecil, did you have any comment on your how you participated in Emancipation?
Well, not too much, except I enjoyed it and I always looked forward to it for many years. And Mr. Perry done a wonderful job, and his foresight was just phenomenal because he was a man of the times, really. Yes.
Excellent. And that was more than just a little to say. So thank you for adding that in. So Clayton, I think you had something to say too.
I just wanted to mention that Tedman Powell, or Ted as they known him as, he was a good contributor to Emancipation celebrations as well. And I recall him on several occasions feuding over at the City Hall with the councilors and trying to get a permit to parade on Olette Avenue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes he would just be swollen up. He would be so upset with the responses he would be getting from the councilors. And he was determined though, and I give him credit that he came out quite often successful in getting some things accomplished. But he never had an easy road to hoe. I don't think he had the contacts that Mr. Perry had, but he had a lot, and he utilized them as best that any man could with what he had.
Yeah.
And I give him credit for that. He used to have a lot of the young women in Windsor go out and sell ads in the annual magazine that they would put out. Progress, yes, that was the name of it. And they had some nice articles in that magazine. I used to have a stack of them that I kept for years. And then when I moved a few times, they got somehow disassociated from me, unfortunately. And I believe that his daughter, Linda, may have some of them still, I'm not sure. But she did have a large percentage of the ones that were published. But if you get a chance to see some of them, there'd be a lot of information on the years that he was managing the Emancipation celebration. Thank
We
you.
do actually have copies of Progress in
Yes.
the museum as well, so.
Yeah.
And I do have a question that deals with Progress and the content that was shared, but did anyone else want to share anything further about that? Okay, so with the Progress magazines, I would consider them to be not just advertisements, but they had a political message as well. So if I had asked about, well, what entertainers did you see, but what political figures did you see? And I've seen Emancipation as contributing to the civil rights movement, not only in the US and Canada, but if everyone could share not only the politicians they remember seeing, but also the civil rights component to Emancipation.
Yeah, that's right.
Janice, I saw you shaking your head. Do you?
I agree with you because I believe I have an article that where Martin Luther King was there
Yes.
Yes.
at the museum.
Yes, he was.
I mean, Emancipation.
Did
And
you-
so was Stevie Wonder.
Mary, what's her name? Very famous black lady. I thought her name was Bethune.
Mary.
Yes.
Oh,
Mary
Oh, yeah.
Bethune
Yep.
and
right.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Elise also mentioned Shirley Chisholm and how she would she would collect, have campaign, she would collect money there to help, or money would be collected to help support her campaign as well. So
Yes.
Shirley Chisholm was someone that Elise mentioned as well.
Okay, yeah. Very interesting.
And she would talk about how the stage was not just for entertainment, but political figures would get up and talk. The people that you've already mentioned, they would share their message as well too. And how, as I mentioned, money would be collected to support organizations and causes going on, not only in Canada or in the US, but Canada as well.
Right.
Very much so.
Did anyone want to add anything further to that?
No.
No? Okay, so we'll go to the next question then. Joan, I think of you fondly when I think of this question because you had mentioned the license plates and how this was such an international event. Can people speak to that? I mean, when I was speaking with Elise, she was talking about how there would be buses of tourists from Japan and Germany who would come specifically for this event. And it was certainly an international event, having people coming from the United States as well. So if anyone wants to share their comments on that, that would be great. Does anyone have, I mean, I think it was mentioned a little bit already, but relatives who came from the US or other parts of outside of Essex County as well that attended?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot
Well,
of shaking heads. So I guess everybody had people that came
well,
from other locations. So I guess we'll move to another question.
I remember.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Clayton.
I remember that these bus loads of people used to come into Emancipation on the Monday after the weekend. And there were rumors going around that all of the Anglo-Saxon people that wanted to come to Emancipation Monday was their designated day. And that's when you would see all of these bus loads of people coming in. And of course, that was a lot of negativity today, but at that time, it wasn't unusual to see something like that take place. And so that was my understanding of what was the appropriate way to come and see Emancipation if you weren't Black.
And Elise also mentioned too the multicultural aspect of Emancipation. Walter was very committed and very aware of having people of all backgrounds attending and different sponsors as well. So she mentioned that it was very much a multicultural event as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So one thing I've heard a lot of people talking about is the food that was at Emancipation. And Elise talked about how there was a special barbecue sauce and she has the recipe for it. And her mother was, I think she referred to as a good Christian woman who didn't want to put beer into the sauce, but that was part of the recipe. But can anyone share anything else about what the food was like and what the parades were like? I know some people have mentioned about the parades too. She talked about how the Shriners were in the parades, the Black Panthers were in the parades, and how when the parade passed by the hospital, they would stop playing out of respect for the patients that were in the hospital. So she had quite a bit to say about that.
Yeah.
She said it would last for a really long time as well, like 2 hours worth
Easily
of time
2
for those
hours.
parades.
Yeah.
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 Parades were massive. There's no
Yes,
getting around. It was something to see, and I think that any one of us here on this panel have to just say it was a fantabulous time to watch a parade in Emancipation.
Absolutely. And every band was better than the next.
Yes, indeed.
From perfect to super perfect.
That's
And,
They used to have
Herald
the
band was the
Shrine
best, though.
Motorcycle Club. You
Oh,
remember them?
Yes.
yeah.
My God, they would really riding around in circles and everything else down Oled Avenue, and
Yeah.
really something to see. Some of the different parts and segments of the parade were phenomenal.
Yeah.
I never had a camera, so I didn't get a lot of shots. But if I had one, I would have a stack of photos here for you. I'll tell you, because it was
Okay.
all great. Yeah.
And Elise also mentioned, and Nancy, you mentioned this to me as well, the Miss Sepia contest,
Oh, yes.
and how Elise had mentioned how there was no other place for Black women to participate in a beauty pageant like that.
Mhm.
That's true.
Nancy, did you want to share any thoughts on the Miss Sepia competition?
No, his wife Helen was the one who was the moving force behind Miss Sepia, because now she was from Germany, so I don't know what motivated her to do this, but she would have parties for them. She would, over at the house there, she would have people come and show them how to do their makeup. So it just wasn't walking in off the street and putting on a bathing suit and then walking around. She had a whole agenda, and it was professionally done. And she really made it a first class pageant. You had to be, when you actually, it was funny because if you had an evening gown on, you had to have gloves on. You couldn't just walk out with your bare hands. Back in the days, the ladies wore the gloves. So, but she was, and Helen was, she was a tough cookie, but she made sure it was done right. So I really, I admired her and her tenacity and continuing, because it was always well done.
Yeah.
She appealed to different people in the community also to sponsor some of the participants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. So we only have a couple more minutes left, so I'll just go to the next question. So in your own opinion, how do you think emancipation celebrations have changed since your experiences, since when you attended?
Wow, that's.
I can tell you from.
Well, it's certainly been missed.
Oh, I think Lana wants to answer this one.
From 2021, where we had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. A group of us met at Jackson Park just to.
I can barely hear.
We can't hear you at all.
Say, you can't hear me at all?
Now we
I can
can.
hear you now.
Okay. I changed position so that you could.
That's
Thank you.
Okay. All I'm saying, from 2021, we met at the Caribbean Center, we met at Sandwich First Baptist Church, and we met at Jackson Park, just so that we could say thank you. Thank you, because we all know what emancipation means to each and every one of us. It's something that should never have died out, but it did. But we can't reinvent the wheel, but what we can do, we can still carry on and continue to fight this fight, because that's what it is. None of us are free until all of us are free.
Are free.
That's what emancipation
right.
is all about, freedom. Not this other stuff, not the parade and not this and not that, but I'm happy that those things did happen because it has led us to where we are today. We also know, yeah, it's a great time. It's a fun time. It's a time to celebrate because we're no longer under the master's hand. This is our emancipation, but we all know different today. It's something that we have to look forward to doing, is keep pushing forward and thinking forward, using all our resources from all our friends, all our people, multicultural, whatever you want to call it. That's where we have to start going forward.
Absolutely.
May I ask a question of some of
Good
the
afternoon.
participants?
Go ahead, Lois,
Gentlemen.
please.
Clayton, what do you think was the first single worst thing that happened to make emancipation a memory?
I think basically we look at the fire at the grandstand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was crucial to
Yes.
downsizing it considerably. Then we had the outbreak at the Windsor Arena, where all the police came in and everybody was in a kerfuffle about some incident that happened just as they arrived inside the arena. And then the police came in and everybody got marched aside and everything, which caused all kinds of anxiety. And then it gave City Hall an excuse not to use Jackson Park for any public events such as the size of the Emancipation celebration. And I don't know, like all of the years that I went to the Emancipation celebration, as I call it, the park was always cleaned up promptly after the event, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And I don't think that any of the participants in the event left any garbage laying all over or anything like that. I know in our family, the mantra was, leave this park cleaner than you found it.
Yeah.
And so the kids would always go around picking up all of their little papers from their candy apples and all that sort of stuff. And when we left, it was cleaned up. We wouldn't even know we were there. And I think a lot of the families adhered to that mantra. So
Yeah.
I think the grandstand fire was a pivotal point.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Thank you, Clayton, and thank you for that question, Lois. I would really like to hear other people's opinion and thoughts on that question as well.
Could I add something?
This is a great point, that it's not just about being positive and this is a celebration. We have to face reality that negative things happened as well and still do. So
When you asked that question, and I concur with Clayton, the grandstand was the first in that there was a lack of fire equipment available. And it was always a very skepticism about how that building, and it was used to be a horse racing track around there. That thing was well built. So it took a lot of fire to get that thing knocked down the way it did.
Right.
The dance at the Windsor Arena, I was there, and a group of us came out and stood at the corner of Wyandotte and McDougal because we saw all the police coming in, and there hadn't been any problems. It was just a minor incident. And all of a sudden, all these police show up, and like we're all standing there saying, what is the problem here? And because it was associated with emancipation, that was a black mark on the whole celebration. But the third thing to me was the riots in Detroit, because they were afraid that something was going to happen over here. So they wouldn't let them 67. They said no. But personally speaking, I think that the negative part of it was politically motivated. The city of Windsor, I believe, because if you think back, what did they call the next major festival in Windsor? It was called what? Freedom Festival.
Yeah.
Do you recall the Freedom Festival? And that's what they called. And they got all kinds of money from here, there, and everywhere. And Walter Perry, he got minimal donations, but these were mega donations to have the Freedom Festival. So, I mean, as far as negativity goes, those three little incidents, but in my estimation, and I'm a little naive, I don't remember too many negative things associated with Emancipation. We all went, we enjoyed, and I've seen a few kids that were snatched when they were misbehaving and their mother snatched them and sat them down. But I do not recall any major incidents other than what we mentioned here. Emancipation was good. When Walter died, and Uncle Walt died in, I think, 68, it was done. Now, Ted Powell tried to do his best, but you could see how they treated him. As Clayton said at City Hall, they didn't want him back at, they didn't want them back at Jackson Park. So
The C word went around then. The C word,
What's the C?
conspiracy.
oh yes, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor
sure.
Mayor Mike Patrick was so negative about Emancipation. He did not want it there because it was successful and we were people of color. And you're
That's
right,
right.
Lois.
That's
You're
right.
There was a Art Ream was the greatest. Well, I'd say he's number one as far as
Yes, he was.
being a friend of our people. But Art Ream was a friend of Walter Perry, and he helped him as much as he possibly could. But when Mike Patrick came in, it all changed.
Oh,
It was almost like, I'm sorry, Cecil, go ahead.
The overpass,
I'm just saying,
overpass.
Mayor Ream
Park in
is
half.
the best thing.
Oh, I think we've got Lana and Cecil talking at the same time. So maybe you go ahead, Cecil, and then Lana, you can add what you, okay, go ahead, Cecil.
Mayor Ream was a friend to the Black people of the city of Windsor.
He was.
He come in, he hired more Blacks that had no Blacks in City Hall, in the garbage. He was not prejudiced. He's just a wonderful person.
Yeah.
But yet, he was something great for our people. I'll never forget him. He was a great mayor, and as far as I'm concerned, a true human being.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Cecil.
agree. I
Go ahead,
agree.
Lana. You go ahead, Lana.
No, I said it's just when Lois said the C word.
Go back in closer, Lana.
Lana, you gotta take it, put the,
Conspiracy. It's when the overpass had to be built, and it was built
Through the
because they
center.
cut
Yeah.
Jackson Park in
Yeah.
half, and no longer could we have the grandstand. I believe that's why the grandstand burnt down. I'm going to be like Nancy. That was well planned. We can't prove it, but all of a sudden, here comes the overpass, and that was one thing that I've always felt that was a negative. Because like Nancy said, everybody had fun at Emancipation. I had
Yes.
never seen a fight between anyone at Emancipation.
No.
We were in a celebratory way. We were just having fun. And then all of a sudden, no more Emancipation. Too many
That's
Black
right.
people in one area at one
Yeah.
time. They were
That's
afraid.
Go ahead,
That-
Wilbur.
okay, the one thing that I think that was never really appreciated was the organizational skills and the calling that Mr. Perry had. Not everybody could just step in behind. He was a visionary. He could look ahead. He looked behind to see, what was, and he had the vision to see what could be. And I think that you don't get people like that often. His passing, the lack of like a plan of succession, I think that had something to do with it. The other thing is, we talk about conspiracies back and forward, but there was a real concerted effort to knock this emancipation down, and it was so foolish from what I can see in retrospect. I'm one of the younger ones here, like I said, but it was foolish for the city of Windsor. Like the population of Windsor would be increased by 1/10 to, almost, some say twice the size I'm not going to go that far, but I know that the place was jam-packed. So to use and this is what I can remember, the riots, that was one thing. And that was kind of something that they could springboard off of, those who didn't want it. And I can remember a little bit of talk about having it done on the riverfront, not there, but to put in Micmac Park, that was a death nail because you're off the beaten trail.
Yeah.
There's no, there was nothing there to facilitate the people coming in and staying. The waste treatment plant, you get a wind out of the west, that would blow you out of the park right there. Everything that could destroy, it came together. And, now, for those who thought it was a great thing and chuckling and laughing, seeing what was lost, I think is enough to wipe the smile off their faces, because they lost a great thing. They lost a great opportunity. And the other thing, and I will shut up after this, but I've seen from what, again, retrospect, Mr. Perry, he was very inclusive about what he did. He was not exclusive. He wasn't trying to, yes, it was to promote the advancement of the Black race. And but it was not only for Windsor, this was for Detroit. He reached out to Illinois, Ohio, up the 401. He brought people together. And, and it wasn't, like the way the media and different ones try to portray it, it was a Black thing. It was not a Black thing. It was a time to celebrate the freedoms that we had in Canada and what made Canada a lot different than any other place in the world to live.
That's right.
That's what I see, and I'm shutting up from here on.
Thank you for bringing that back positive, Wilby. What happened financially and commercially? What emancipation brought to Windsor?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I think that, go ahead, Nancy. Go ahead,
No,
Nancy.
Lois is exactly right. If they ever measured how much money it brought to the city, it was noteworthy. And
That's right.
I just, and I'm glad you brought that up because it really made for a successful, for people to feel like they were part of something, but also the financial assets that came to the city were never appreciated. The city didn't realize how much money they made off emancipation. They were just hell bent on getting it stopped.
Can I back up and repent from what I just said about not saying anything else? The city of Windsor would flip backwards 15 times if they could get anything 1/10 that measured up to what the emancipation was back then as opposed to what it is now.
That's it.
Clayton, did you have something to add to that as well?
I think that Mr. Mulder and Joan had summarized what I had to say, in that it's sort of like a comparison of what they did with the excuse me, Care Fest up in Toronto.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were bringing money by the ton into Toronto and getting none of it as feedback, right? And they did the same thing here.
That's right.
So it's unfortunate, and it's a fact that we have to live with now, because you can't back up and try it again, right?
Yes. Yes. So before I open it up, we've got a few minutes to have the audience ask a couple questions. If you want to either type it in the comment section or if you want to unmute yourself. But before we do that, I just want to see if anyone wants to add anything else or any further thoughts before we go into the questions.
I would just like to add one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
When Uncle Walt died, the front page of the Windsor Star stated that Walter Perry had passed away and he was $11,000 in debt. That's how they paid him back. And I'm sorry to end on a negative note, but when I find the article, I will share it with you. But that's what they had, that he was $11,000 in debt. So,
and Nancy, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yes.
Because this is not just meant to be a panel discussion where we only talk about glowing memories. I want this to be a realistic, like your experience, even if there was negative experiences, I want that to be shared as well. So thank you for sharing that too.
Okay.
Did anyone want to share anything else before we go to the questions?
One thing,
Okay, go ahead, Cecil.
the emancipation, the celebration of emancipation over that weekend, and what brought in the people, the commercial, the money, it's the biggest thing ever. Nothing up till now has compared.
Compared with it, that's right.
Amen.
That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you so much, Cecil, for adding on that note or ending on that note. So did anyone have any questions they wanted to ask the panelists? If you do, you can just unmute yourself or type it in the comment section where myself or Anand will see.
I don't have a question for the panelists. I just wanted to introduce myself and thank the panelists for sharing. My name is Melissa. I'm a postdoc at McGill doing Black Canadian history, and next year I'll be an assistant prof at McGill doing Black Canadian history, and my research focus is Ontario. And it's the stories that you're sharing today that really remind me of how resilient and strong your community is. Even the experiences and the strength it takes to talk about and heal from anti-Black racism while celebrating Black joy at the same time. It's a testament to your ancestors, it's a testament to your descentage, and it's also a testament to your ability to continue to nourish the present day generations with what you've had to go through and come through so beautifully. So I just want to thank you for sharing and allowing me to be a part of your discussion by just observing. And I hope that I'll see some of you. I'm presenting some of my work at the Essex County Black Historical Research Society on November 18th at 7, thanks to the kind invitation of Irene Moore Davis. And I hope I'll be able to see and engage with some of you then. And just again, thank you so much.
As someone who's not a panelist, but who is going to be attending that meeting, I'm very excited to hear your presentation. I just wanted to share that. So, but if anyone, even if you don't have a question, if you had a comment or a shared experience, you're welcome to share that as well.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so did anyone, oh, Shirley, are you trying to say a comment? Yeah.
Yes, I am, but I'm not
Okay, go ahead.
sure how to do it. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you. Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay. I'm Shelley Van Dyke. My mom was Janice McCurdy from Amherstburg. Okay. She grew up in Amherstburg, and she recently passed, but she used to take us to the Emancipation celebrations, and we absolutely loved going. And it was such a rich part of our past, and like everything everybody said is has been such a positive experience from my past and my memories, and I wish we could definitely resurrect it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Does anyone else have a comment or question before we end?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, Kimberly, is that you?
That is me.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Comment. This has been a trip down memory lane. I was very young when Uncle Walt died, and my grandfather disengaged himself from emancipation every year. But I do remember the barbecue smells. I was about 10 when the emancipation celebrations were actually where their sponsorship with the city of Windsor and the city of Detroit actually was broken up. And for those who don't know who I am, I'm Russ Small's granddaughter. So he was chairman for emancipation for a long time. What I would like to add is, number one, I heard Nancy, and I think I heard Lois just talking about the sponsorship being withdrawn by the city of Windsor and the city of Detroit, and the Freedom Festival suddenly appearing. And I will offer to everyone that I'm currently in the midst of, we'll just say, first round conversations about getting specifically because of the Emancipation Date becoming actually officially a national holiday in Canada. I've had conversations to resurrect the Emancipation celebration, starting from this side and then moving it into what it was, which was the international flavor. And yes, other people kind of hijacked our celebration. So I'm going to try and hijack it back. That's number one. And number two, to the young lady who is going to present on November the 14th, I think she said, I'm the vice president of the Essex County Black Historical Research Society, and I can't wait for your presentation. So that's kind of all I had today, but I will say that I enjoyed the trip down memory lane today.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. So we have two raised hands. I've got Rob, and then Leslie, you can go next after Rob. So Rob, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Rob Green from One Sound. And I just wanted to say that I've really got a lot of history today from a place where my ancestors came through. They came through Windsor, North Bucks, and that sort of thing. One part of the family. The other part of the family came through St. Catharines. So really appreciate that. Next year, One Sound is celebrating their 160 years of the Emancipation Picnic. It was started by Reverend Miller a long time ago. And, you know, I never knew that this existed, this emancipation existed in your area. And so I've really got a keen interest in not only that, but in all of Black history, etc. I know my parents, when I was younger, they took me to another picnic, the Port Dalhousie picnic. I'm not too sure.
Yes.
If you people remember that, but we went there one time, and we had all kinds of friends and relatives in Hollywood, which was our sister town. But I really, really appreciate what I've heard today. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And you know, your memories are what keeps us together as Black people and as a Black nation and as Black Canadians. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your comment, Rob, and showing that emancipation went beyond just Essex County. It was throughout this province, throughout the country. So thank you for sharing that. Leslie, you can go ahead and ask your question or share your comment.
Just wanted to say thank you. It was nice listening to everybody talk about their memories of the emancipation. It's something, I was small too, but it really, really impressed upon me. And I remember it. And I have actually performed my shows at some of the other emancipation celebrations across the province. So I know that they still go on. But Lana was talking earlier about some events that were held this year. And that was because the Black Council of Windsor, Essex, something that was started last summer that just celebrated its anniversary meeting yesterday, thought that because the announcement was made of the federal recognition of the date, that we had to recognize it in some kind of small way. So we put on the activities that were at the Caribbean Center, Sandwich First Baptist Church, and basically what we called what happened Monday at Jackson Park was a sit-in to reclaim the space, just symbolically. But we are hoping to keep going forward. I know there have been some other people that have been trying to do celebrations and they've not necessarily been successful. But part of my reasoning for that is because I think they were trying to start too big and that we need to start small and have community endeavors going on. So that's what we tried to do this year, was have just some small community things going on, trying to make sure it's inclusive of the entire Black, African, and Canadian members of the local diaspora. That's what the Black Council of Windsor Essex is about. And what was so wonderful about what happened this year is that there were a lot of people that came to us and said that they hope we continue, that they hope that this was going to seed something that would eventually grow into what the festivities used to be before, and that they would be willing to help. They are willing to volunteer next year. People said they'd help us find funding sources, all kinds of things to help it keep going. And already we're talking about that in the council and talking about how we'd like to reach out to those other emancipation celebrations that are occurring in the province. Because one of the things that we've learned with this pandemic and having to Zoom and live stream and stuff is that you can share things like across the country. So we want to look at trying to find ways where we can share our celebrations here across the country and have them share with us here, so we can truly, make it something that is celebrated across Canada in communities, because it really is an important celebration of, in part, some of the good things that Canada did and what Canada's about. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. And thank you for all the work that you're doing, and the council as well. Very much appreciative for the work that you're doing as well. I don't see any more raised hands, and I don't see any more comments. So if no one else has anything to say, Janice, are you raising your hand?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
For Emancipation, Patty and John Liardi from Oakville, they're going to sponsor, I should say, represent the Holland family for Emancipation. I'm not exactly sure of the date, but they came to the museum here. We were trying to find out where my grandmother Johnson came from, and it's in Bronte, Ontario. And so they're going to feature my grandparents in Oakville for Emancipation. That's it.
Amazing. And Janice, if I would love to hear more about that if you hear.
I thought I sent you a link when I got it from Patty to let me know.
If you can resend it to me, I would love to know more about that.
Because I did send her a link for today.
Okay.
So I will do that.
Okay, thank you. And Lois, you had a comment as well, I think?
I just have an apology, and I thank Rob for bringing it up. I told you my grandmother took me to Crystal Beach. It was Port Dalhousie. Thank you for the clarification.
Excellent. So I think I don't think we have any questions or any more comments. So I just wanted to end by saying thank you so much to the panelists, Cecil and Joan, Nancy, Lois, Wilbur, Clayton, Janice, Lana. I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your thoughts, and Elise, who couldn't make it today and her answers are pre-recorded. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing in my opinion, the complete picture of emancipation, not just the positive, but the negative parts of it as well. I think that it's important to know both. So thank you so much for sharing your memories, and thank you everyone for joining us as well. And we hope that you enjoyed this panel discussion. I think it's very important that these memories are shared and preserved. So thank you so much everyone for joining us. And again, thank you so much to the panelists.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is wonderful.
She's got a great personality.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
I'm so glad. I so appreciate all of you for doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important what all of you shared. So this is fantastic.
I want a copy of this tape.
Well, it's recorded. So I'll be sharing it on our website and YouTube as well. I'm going to see if Facebook allows me to upload it, but I'll be sharing a link for sure. So definitely it will be out there.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Excellent.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine, for all your hard work and your effort. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You guys made this such an amazing experience. So thank you so much.